And welcome to the Grupetto Show. If you're into cycling and you like up-to-date race results, in-depth interviews and interesting stories, then go to the bike lane. Otherwise, join us here for wild speculation, unsubstantiated rumours, with me, the has-been, Billy Joe Shearsby.
And me, the know-it-all, Adam Kelsall.
So, we released a podcast last week, Adam.
Released?
Well, I cobbled together some audio that I managed to salvage because we had a very special guest on the show last week, and we did a fantastic interview. Would you agree that was a great interview?
World class.
Yeah, we covered some amazing subject matter, and then I deleted it all.
I got a call from Keenan during the week. Matthew Keenan said he heard it was the best, like he heard from that guest, best interview that guest has ever had in his full professional career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, that we called that one the Phil Anderson debacle.
Who?
Phil Anderson, the debacle. This show, we've managed to get another special guest, Phil Anderson.
Phil Anderson, ladies and gentlemen, give him a round of applause. Welcome. And just to make Phil, how are you, Phil?
Good, mate. I'm cold, actually.
You're a bit cold.
Yeah,
well, we've got
mate.
something for that. And because we've moved into the high-tech world of video, filming, etc., we've got props.
We wanted to make sure that you weren't going to get chilly here, Phil, because we know you are a man of advanced age, despite looking younger than anyone else in this room, considerably. There you go.
Comfy, mate?
Beautiful.
How does that work?
Might get a hot flush soon, but that'll be good for the meantime.
Going through a bit of the old menopause, are we?
Yes, it's been a bit of a struggle the last couple of months, actually.
Happens to the best of us.
So probably the worst question we could ask you first up, Phil, is how old are you now, mate?
Heading towards 60.
I find that hard to believe.
I find that really hard to believe. I feel confident that if we were to run up and down the street, you'd do it quicker than me. If we were to ride up and down the street, you'd be quicker than me. What about you, Billy Joe?
I'm not running anywhere. I guarantee Phil could outrun me, definitely. Yeah. Phil, when you started racing, in fact, for quite a long time when you were racing, there were things that cyclists used like toe clips, friction gear shifters. You explain for our people that are watching this show what a friction gear shifter is, because I know most of them don't have a clue.
Well, it used to change the gears with a couple of levers which were down on the down tube, and yeah, it's just like modern levers. Your big chain was the one on the left. The front changer was the one on the left. One on the right was the rear derailleur changer, and there wasn't any sort of indexing on the first ones when I first started racing, so it was kind of vague where the gears actually were. It was pretty much a lottery, and there's been more than one rider go over the handlebars because his gears weren't really quite.
I actually did exactly that at the. I know you've won a lot of races. I don't believe you ever won a Metropolitan Juvenile Road Race Championship. I did win that at Sandown one year in a spectacular fashion. Actually, I was training for the individual 1 kilometre time trial on the track, and I was sitting on the back of the bunch with a young man named Brad Harris who challenged me to go up the front to take a turn because I'd been sitting on the whole day.
Brad Wiggins, did you say?
I wish it was Bradley Wiggins. No, we'll get to him later. Don't you worry about that. No, this was Brad Harris, and he said to me, go to the front and take a turn. And so I went to the front, did a turn up the back straight at the Sandown racecourse, and looked around, and I had about 100 metres on the bunch with 2 laps to go. And so I kept going, and on this particular day, I was riding a 531 Hillman bicycle with full Campagnolo record with the cables out the top and friction down bar shifters, the whole lot. And I rode away off into the night. And coming into the finish straight on the last lap, I was all excited to put my hands up. I thought I'd give it one last little acceleration. And yeah, chain slipped. I did a little nose wheelie and wobbled all over the road and somehow held it up and rolled across the line, but in probably the least graceful fashion you could.
So speaking of juvenile, Phil, can I just clarify? You mentioned the shifters were on the down tube?
Yes, yeah, shifters on the down tube.
So like if we were to look at this bike up here, where it says, what does it say, BJ?
Jim Bundy.
Where it says Jim Bundy, that's where the shifters were?
Yep. right where the Y is.
Not up on the handlebars like mine.
No. It wasn't anywhere near the handlebars, which in itself posed a bit of a problem because when you're sprinting, if you're out of the seat, well, you've got to sit down again to be able to take your hands off the bars and change it. Whereas now, of course, everything's up on the bars. So, yeah, different way of sprinting.
So these riders these days, they're soft. Half of the job's being done for them, really, isn't it? I mean, let's admit it. Carbon fibre bikes, self-shifting gears, electronic shifting even. Half the work's being done. I mean, what are they? They must spend a lot more time lying around than you guys because they...
Well, like a bunch of track riders.
That's right. Well, exactly.
Fixie riders.
Exactly. Even worse.
So, Phil, with the shifters on the down tube, were you ever tempted to change someone else's gears for them? Because it would be quite easy just to...
Oh, look, it did happen from time to time, but yeah, never in the heat of the moment when you're racing. Maybe when you're training, you'll be goofing around with your teammates. You sort of reach down under the back wheel or whatever, that sort of stuff. But
that actually used to happen quite a bit, if I recall. You'd say we sprint to the crossing and then throw someone into the small chain ring. I used to do that quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one thing you could do.
Now, let's say if somebody like, let's say, Bernard Hinault did that to you in the middle of a sprint, would you be tempted to, I don't know, punch him in the nose?
Take him down, maybe?
Take him down, knock him off, punch him in the nose. I've heard, wild speculation, which is a part of this show, that you may or may not have punched Bernard Hinault in the face.
No. No, I may have broken his nose, but that was totally unintentional.
Would you like to maybe tell us a bit more about how that happened?
It was in the 86 Tour de France, and I think there was a big battle going on between Hinault and Greg LeMond. They were on the same team. I think it was the La Vie Claire team. And I was a good friend of Greg at the time, or still am, of course. But anyway, yeah, there was. We're coming into Saint-Étienne in the last week of the Tour de France. It's sort of a slight uphill finish, and there'd been quite a hilly day, and there was maybe 30 or 40 riders left in the front group. And who was it that was leading out? There was. Steve Bauer, the Canadian, was leading out the sprint. I was in second or third place, and just as he was kicking in the sprint or accelerating, he hit one of those little cat eyes, those little
like the little reflector things.
Yeah, in the middle of the road. It's a big, wide sort of avenue, sort of boulevard.
So it's a big, wide road, but he still managed to hit it.
He still managed to hit it.
Bloody Canadians.
It's like 4 or 5 lanes wide. It's sort of pavé, which has been covered with tar, some cheap French bloody bitumen job. And anyway, he hit this bloody thing, and his back wheel slipped right across into my front wheel. And I had his wheel, and the front wheel didn't collapse, but I sort of went over, and I tried reaching over and grabbing the next person's bloody his gear lever, actually. No, there's no hope of saving it. I went over, and a couple of other guys came down. There's maybe half a dozen of us on the floor, and I remember looking over and seeing Hinault was on the floor next to me, and it's the only crash I've ever been in, and my shoes actually come off. So that's kind of bizarre. I've heard when
if you fall hard enough for your shoe to come off, that's pretty bad.
Well, that was another one of those innovations from the mid-'80s was
laces,
clipless pedals.
Yeah. Oh, right,
Velcro.
sorry, yes.
Yeah, that's right. So back then we had to have our feet really tighten up excruciatingly. You'd reach down before a sprint and tighten them up so that, your foot was going blue. But anyway, my foot wasn't quite going blue enough because my shoe came off. Not only your foot came out, but the shoe came off. And I remember seeing somebody jumping over the fence and grabbing my bloody shoe.
Oh, well, the ultimate souvenir, a Phil Anderson shoe.
That's right. Anyway, I got to the finish and I went back to the hotel. We all got the same time because it was, in the last, it's in the last few metres. I got back to the hotel, and the press were there before me, and I guess Hinault had accused me that I was colluding with his teammate Greg LeMond to try and eliminate him from the race. And he saw him the next day. He had a big shiner. He'd broken his nose. In my very, back in the early 80s, it was actually my very first. I think it was my first Paris-Nice. Like, I'd only been pro for a couple of weeks, and there was a there was a protest by farmers, and they'd block the road, and they'd put a ton of bloody potatoes on the road to make sure we all stop. And when they saw that the riders were actually skittling through the potatoes, they ran out and grabbed us. And so there's a bit of a kerfuffle, and I'm right next to Hino. He was a real hero of mine. Maybe I was just stalking him. This is prior to later things in my career with Eno.
This is interesting. And this just took a turn for the interesting.
And anyway, and Eno was infuriated that these protests were there, and people like grabbing and pushing, like everybody. We're all sort of getting pulled off our bikes, and so there's a photo going around of Hino taking a swing at one of these poor potato farmers. And I was right next to him, so it looked like it was sort of like in this brawl.
Being
so you see that photo, it's been used out of context. I never actually punched him.
I get that.
Even though I felt like I should have a few times.
So to take us back a bit in time, Phil, like you've mentioned Bernard Hinault in the 86 Tour de France. Let's go back even earlier to where it started for you. So you, as a 19-year-old, rode in the Commonwealth Games.
Well, I was a kid from the mid-70s. That's when I started racing, just joined the Hawthorn Club. And it was just a shit kicker in the club, and I never really did much early on. But Ted Sanders, that's Dave Sanders from the VAS and AIS. His old man was like president of the club, and took myself and a couple of the other young kids under his arm. And he said to me, Phil, you got to get rid of that 56. He used to have a really big chain ring there. But anyway, he taught me a few ways about training and racing. Like I never used to train, and so he sat down with me and he gave me some of the basic principles of how to become an athlete. He had three great sons who were fantastic cyclists, one of which David was. He had David and Wayne, so he had three very successful sons. They'd represented Australia, or at least David and John had, in the Com Games, and had raced overseas. And so, I really respected everything Ted Sanders said. And automatically, once I began training, I started to improve and show a little bit of potential.
Wait a minute.
At least at club level.
This is getting controversial now. So, and a very similar thing happened to me, because I was in the VIS talent ID program, and they couldn't get me to follow my training program or turn up to training. And so Hilton Clark, who was the coach at the time, dragged David Sanders in, son of Ted, and he dragged me out and made me train, as they used to call it, and I improved too, lo and behold.
Yeah.
It's a common theme with a lot of cyclists, with the whole training and improvement thing.
I'm 40 years old now. I've been training all my life, and I've never improved. There's a thing called talents, and you had the talent to get selected for the Com Games. So nowadays, like if Billy Joe was that age again and he went to the Com Games, he'd have a masseuse, he'd have a physio, he'd have someone to tweak the nipples on his wheels. What was it like going to the Com Games?
Where you were going there with the nipple
Yes,
thing.
well,
That's where I was
I
going.
knew where I was going. I didn't mean to hesitate. What was it like going to the Com Games as a 19-year-old in the 70s?
Oh, it was great. Like, I was with the Sansonetti twins at Sal and Remo, two guys who I really looked up to. They had the whole of Australia, all the medals that had ever been given away at the national championships. They had them all, and they'd raced in Europe. They'd done the track and in Italy, and coming from an Italian heritage, when they were talking, I was just hanging on every word. I began training with them. I began, almost like in that film, what was it, Breaking Away, when the kids wanted to race the big time.
And so, Phil, 19 years old, you won the Commonwealth Games. Incredible. Tell us about the race.
200k race. It's in Alberta, Canada. It's my first major trip out of Australia. I mean, I'd been to South Australia. No, that's overseas, isn't it?
Yeah.
Another country.
It's definitely a few years back as well. So
yeah, but so I was over there at the Commonwealth Games. team of 4 Australians. Sansonetti brothers were there. Myself and a gentleman, Glinderman from Queensland, actually. But anyway, it was a 200k race, shitty weather. It's a pretty boring course, basically up and down a freeway between a couple of exits for, 15 laps or something like that. And because I'd never ridden out of Australia, there's guys there, I think it was from Pakistan or India, the Commonwealth countries, but he had turbans on their head, or, like things I looked a lot different than what we were wearing as helmets anyway. But so it was it's an ethnic crowd, I can tell you. But anyway, the pack thinned down. The weather took half of the field out. And then actually it nearly took me out because I think it was a lap and a half from the finish. I came down. I was already in a breakaway of 4 or 5 riders. And slipped and got back up, chased, and managed to win in a 4-up sprint. Five of us in the sprint.
And so do you, you've won, as I said earlier, more races than I've ridden. Are there any things that you wish you had won? I mean, obviously a Tour de France would have been nice, but,
Was that World Championship jersey?
You have a great collection of jerseys here,
nice.
but you don't have one of them.
No, that's right. Yeah,
so no world title. Bendigo Tour? You ever won? Never no Bendigo Tour?
No. The 3-day Peninsula Tour.
Okay, and we established that you also had never won a Metropolitan Juvenile Road Race Championship.
No, that's right. Haven't been there either. So there are a few
lot of
rocks which
regrets.
have unturned.
So you've considered coming back to try win one of these, possibly the Bendigo Tour?
Well, the Juvenile, that'd be hard to pass.
Oh, you'd kick their asses now.
It'd be very hard.
Here's a copy here, Phil.
Now, when we did the last episode, the lost episode, as we will refer to it, and never again mention it, I did no research. And because I just thought I knew stuff about you, which I kind of think I know stuff about things, and it turns out that I generally don't. So for this one, I did a heap of research. I went onto your Wikipedia page, and I'd written down a question here about your last defeat to Lyoto Machida in the middleweight division, and then I realised that was Phil Davis from the UFC. So you don't cage fight, right? No.
No, that's the other one.
You do. It did say on here that on your Wikipedia page that you had a reputation for crashing.
Yeah, I'll have to get in and change that because I don't think that's actually
not a fact. No.
No.
Okay.
Like guys around me said before, maybe I was a rough rider.
That could possibly have beat it. The other thing that it also said, and this is the very controversial thing that I thought we should bring up now just to clear the air, is it said that you were born in the UK.
You're a Pom?
Yeah.
Apparently, Les Skippy is a Pom.
It's pretty sad, isn't it?
That's okay, I'm South African, but they'll take anyone here. Funny how they have to import their cycling talent, though, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. It's pretty sad, isn't it? Yeah, it's good riders coming out of Africa, though.
Absolutely, well, that's right.
It's
well,
an
and
entire
what happened to me is when I was winning, I was Victorian or Australian cyclist Billy Joe Shearsby. And then when I had a falling out with Charlie Walsh, I was suddenly former South African Billy Joe Shearsby. That my label just shifted overnight. So you did bring in some of your jerseys here, and again, very impressive, very impressive. I did wonder, just while we're on the subject of, trying to build the regrets and things that you've never have achieved. I don't believe you ever won an AIS Athlete of the Month for August award either, did you? No?
No, I did not.
Do you have anything that might match that? I don't know, maybe next to you on the...
No. Well, a couple of trophies here. I've won some stages in the tour.
Have a look. Can we have
are
you able to lift that? I don't know.
Not in my current state. Remember my age.
We need a handler here.
I'll lift the lid.
He's lifting the lid.
That's right.
The lid has been lifted, folks.
Yes, that's right. No, that's the Italians are into, flamboyancy and so
trophies.
Large trophies.
And trophy women.
Yeah, so that's a Giro stage. There's another one floating around up behind it. There's an Intergiro trophy, which I won back in '90. So, He had
So you want a bunch of
Giro
stages of the
jerseys.
Giro
Yeah, I
too?
thought since, it's a sort of flavour of the month.
Aussies winning the stages of the Giro.
There we go. Yeah, well, being the Giro, I thought bring in a couple of things. Yes.
Now, Adam, just quickly, you did mention on the audio podcast recently that you thought that Richie Porte was overrated as a favourite for the Tour. Okay, we just have one for Adam here for being right.
On the inaugural
Penultimate. Last ever
podcast that we made, I did predict that Richie Porte wouldn't win. I'm not sure that I used the word overrated, but
you used the word overrated.
I think I might have said that he needs to win a few get on the podium a few times
Crappy
before
triathlete,
maybe.
I think that was that thrown in there
I might have
somewhere?
said something about triathlete and the best in
Sucky
Tasmania
triathlete.
maybe isn't the best.
Yeah.
Phil, what's been your take on Richie Porte? He's gone from hero to not going so well.
Back to triathlon, maybe?
Give us your, a lot more about the sport than we do. Give us your analysis of Richie's performance at the Giro.
Well, I think the Sky team are going to sell their camper, and they're giving that up. I think Chris Froome had his money on that.
South African.
Yeah, there we go for the Tour. But look, I was hoping that Port would make it through. In the past he's shown that he always has a bad day. But it was difficult because news didn't come through how serious his injury was until he'd basically abandoned. So
Now, I don't watch cycling. What was his injury?
he crashed. He crashed the day before the time trial, I think it was, and he was favourite for the time trial, and and hurt his knee and his hip, I think it was. So very disappointing. But
it's not like that's a fairly serious injury. It's not like something piffling, like maybe continuing an entire tour with a broken sternum, as I believe you did.
Before we get on to the sternum, Phil, is Richie tough enough? Like we hear before stages, before mountain stages, you used to lie on a bed of nails and get someone to extract toenails with pliers just to get you fired up for the stage. And yet Richie's swanning around in his own bloody RV, which Froome or Wigo never did. Is Richie tough enough?
Yeah, look, I think he is. I think there's just been a lot of hype about it, and there's a lot of expectation. He had a great preparation. He rode very well until he got that bloody wheel from Clarkey, and that was a big mistake.
Bloody Aussies looking after each other again. No South African would ever do that. Or Pom.
It was bad judgment. I mean, the heat of the moment, I don't know what you can put it down to, but I guarantee you won't do it again.
No, that'll never happen again.
No, it was really...
That was officially the last show of sportsmanship we'll ever see in a Grand Tour.
No, but I think his team has really let him down. I mean, we're not going to really talk about current affairs like this, but, I was disappointed that his team wasn't there.
It's controversial.
No, that's right. We should be listening to some other program to get that kind of scoop.
Go to the bike lane again for facts. Bike lane.
Team Sky let him down. So, Phil, you win gold at the Commonwealth Games. You move to Europe to be a pro. 2 years later, you're in your first Tour de France. What happens there? What happens next?
First Tour de France. I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, it's a different environment than now. Now there's like live feed, and you've got Tomalaris and Liggett coming over, and it's just there's always everybody's an expert. But when I went over there, I'd read Mockridge's book. I'd done some research on it, but I didn't really know what to expect exactly. I knew my teammates. There's a big selection process in the team, and guys are pissed off because I was in the cut, and but. Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. So that year, it was in '81, started in down the Côte d'Azur, Nice, and Promenade des Anglais prologue, which was fine. I think I even got a first page result, which is pretty good. I was pretty excited about that. And day 4 was a team time trial, finishing in Carcassonne, the Peugeot team, which I was in. We got second or third, so. We remember Green Edge from the Giro. They were all stacked up in the top 10. Well, the Peugeot riders, I think it was rally first. We might have even came second, but we were, certainly in the front, in the top of the first page. And day 5, the next day, was the first day in the mountains. I'd never ridden, big mountains before. I'd ridden the Dandenongs. I'd never actually seen the mountains. So here I was, about 30, 40 k's in. The race, the tempo started to build a bit, and so I was expecting the first mountain to be right there, the way they were racing, and turned to one of my teammates and asked him, where are these hills? They're racing. They're going so fast now. And, I was sticking my head up above the peloton, trying to look over all these heads and where these, trying to see the mountains on the horizon. Couldn't see shit. It was kind of a cloudy day anyway. And no, he said, no, you got to look up there. And I looked up above the clouds and you could see the peaks of these mountains. And I was, all of a sudden, the butterflies were there. And, just like everybody else, I started, trying to make my way to the front. I knew we only had 10 k's to go. So, our job that day was to look after Jean-René Bernardeau, who is, is the director of the Europe car team at the moment. He's a very good climber. He did well the year prior, and so he was on Bernard Hinault's team the year before, and my Peugeot team went out and, paid a heap of money to get this Frenchman, hoping he was going to win the Tour de France. And our job was to look after this Jean-René. So, we're going up the first mountain, and I noticed already, by halfway up the mountain, there's already a lot of guys who'd sat up. That it was a matter of elimination. So we got to the top of the first climb. We had about 4 cols to go. Went over like Périssoud and it's the Aspin, all these climbs in the sort of the southeastern Pyrenees this particular day. And we got to the top, whistled down the bottom. We hit the second climb. And we're going, we're sort of, maybe 5 k's into the climb. I think we're now on the Périssoud, and I hear my team car coming up behind. This is before radios. Yeah. And
they're making that noise.
Exactly. Yeah.
The first week of racing in Europe, and you go to sleep every night, and all you hear in your dreams is.
Now people have them on their phones.
Yeah. And Italians going, bye.
That's right. They actually were the precursor to the ringtone.
Mm.
But anyway, each team had their own tune, believe it or not. And so it was my team. So I went back, and my director's yelling out the door. He says, "Where's Jean-René? Where's Jean-René?" And I said, "Fuck, that's right. That's right. Jean-René." And I'm sitting up looking around, and the young kid on the Peugeot team's looking for his teammate, and anyway, I said,
"No parley Frenchy."
Yeah, exactly. So the field was like in half. Like we only had like 100 riders left out of 200, and he said, "No, he's in the next group." And I said, "No problem. I'll sit back. I'm bloody puffing like a puffing Billy here. I'll bloody sit up." And he says, "No, you're the only Peugeot rider left." I thought, what kind of team are we? We've got 100 riders, and I'm the only guy there. So, I said, "I'll come back." He said, "No, you come to my room tonight, though." He sort of bloody scolded me.
That took a bit of a turn for the dark.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
they're pretty rough on the young French cyclists, aren't they?
That's right. So anyway, we go over the second climb, and sure enough, the same thing happened. Suddenly we're down to like 60 riders, and we come at the penultimate climb, and
it's the second one.
Second last, yes.
Oh, geez, we've had this wrong the whole time.
Yeah.
Wow, damn it, we're gonna have to re-record all these podcasts.
So anyway, we're going over this second last climb, and the field was really whittling down. I started to recognise some of the riders because I felt like an alien there. I started recognising some of these other guys, like they were, I had some of these guys on posters on my wall back home, and I couldn't believe I was riding in this company. And so it's getting hot under this blanket here.
Who were some of the names?
They're covered in dog fur now.
Who were some of the names around you?
There's Bernard Thevenet, of course, Bernard Hinault.
Moser?
Moser.
Maybe
No, he would have
not
been
in
that first group dropped.
right at the arse.
yeah.
So
Zudemel,
you've-
Van Imp,
You've
guys
dropped
who...
Moser in your first tour.
Yes.
Can you
Yep.
confirm for me, because I've mentioned this a few times and people never believe me, but I did get to meet Francesco Moser once. Very long hands. Just very, like he shook my hand and his fingers went halfway up my forearm. Very, very long hands.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, he did have big hands actually. You could see him, bloody, when his hands were on the top, he had a very aero position because his hands would actually almost cover the entire lever and
Brush
go
the
round.
glass off his front tyre without letting go of the tops.
That's right. Yeah, just whisk him off with his nails.
Yeah.
But anyway, so getting back to the, this second last climb, we went over the top, and there's only like a handful of guys there, like 20 guys left. There's, those names I mentioned, they were there, Paul Criquillon, guys who, really
Phil Anderson.
I was the only non-pro there. But just before we got to the top, I'd never really ridden the front of a big race like this before. I'd noticed it was quite a warm day, and riders would, see somebody with a bottle beside the road, and handing up a drink bottle, and the rider on the side would grab the bottle and take a swig and hand it to the next, and it sort of go across the front of the front row of the race. So I saw
The
somebody.
cyclist version of passing the joint. Yeah.
Maybe.
Take a hit, pass it along.
Could be.
Yeah.
So
So
anyway,
I saved all my drug use for was after cycling.
So we could see, I saw somebody there with a big stovey. No, it was actually a nice frosty Coke. And I thought, here I can get some bloody points, grab that bloody Coke. And, it was bloody so cold, nearly froze my hand off. And I crack it, and I look over next to me, and there's Bernard Hinault, who's like a superhero of mine. And I was about to take a swig, and I sort of looked towards Hinault, and he was frothing, and he was like in a pretty bad state.
He was an angry badger.
He was an angry badger. Certainly a lot different than the airbrush poster I had on my wall back in Melbourne here. And so I offered him a Coke as a gesture, before I even took a swig. And he looked at me like, I don't know who he thought I was. He possibly thought I was somebody out of the crowd, some dork.
He's like, who's this
On a
weird
fixie.
Aussie?
Some dork that jumped in the peloton with a fixie. I just didn't have the scruff. And he knocked that bloody Coke out of my hand. It was like, I can't believe my hero, did that.
It makes you want to punch him in the nose, doesn't it?
It does. Give him a bloody shiner. So anyway, I scuttled sort of back behind and thought, that didn't do too much. It's overrated, you got to obviously earn your spot the front row. But anyway, I went down the hill, and then at the bottom, Lucien Van Imp, the Belgian guy, he was wearing the Belgian national colours. He attacked, and I certainly wasn't going to chase him. There was much more worthy riders than me there to do the job, so I just kind of sat in a little bit, and but in the acceleration to try and go with him, it left only like 3 or 4 riders left, and eventually there was just Lucien Van Imp up the road, and then myself and Hinault, and we rode to the top. So that was a
Never heard of any of them.
so for me that was a big day.
And you ended up in yellow that day?
I ended up in yellow. That's right. So it was an historical day for non-Europeans, because there'd never been a non-European get the jersey before. So it was a bit of a flurry at the finish. Having some alien. It may as well have been. I mean, Australia could have been Austria. No, Australia could have been. It didn't matter. It could have been like another planet. So
Phil, you finished 5th in the 1985 Tour de France. The names in front of you. First place, Bernard Hinault. Second place, Greg LeMond. Third place, Stephen Roach. Fourth place, Sean Kelly.
Who?
Sean Kelly? I can't believe you let 2 Irishmen beat you. But seriously, those names in front of you are all-time legends, and you in my eyes, are amongst them. What was it like finishing 5th in the Tour behind those guys?
I think it's great. I mean, you always want to improve where you are. I'd had in my second tour, I also came 5th. So every year you try and change your training, you try and improve, you sort of you never look over your shoulder, always looking forward. You're trying to, next you come fifth, you want to come first, you want to do better. And so it's not really until you retire that you sort of look back and say, it was bloody great. It was ace. It was great to be there. And you look at the contemporary racing now and to think that you did that. Maybe in another era, but it's fabulous. And I respect all those guys, and likewise they possibly respect me.
So when you first heard that Greg LeMond had been shot, who initially did you think had shot him? What was the first name that came to mind? I'm guessing Bernardino.
Bernardino, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they had.
Greg probably tried to give him a can of Coke. And
long-standing battles, but it's interesting.
Bloody Frenchman.
Did you, after the shooting incident, was there sledging in the peloton when LeMond came back? Because allegedly his brother mistook him for a turkey. Was there like gobbling noises in the peloton when he came back?
No, back then he was, he was pretty slight compared to now. So,
but a little bit of a turkey.
Yeah. So, pretty hard to mistake him for a turkey back then. But no, he was out for like 9 months. He was out for a long time, or even a year. So, by the time he came back, he's kind of low profile. It wasn't a big entrance.
We're going to get on to Lance in a minute. And I say Lance because I'm South African and I know how to speak. You rode with both of those guys. Who do you think would win in a fight between Greg LeMond and Lance Armstrong?
Well, Lance certainly has youth at his side.
That's true, but I think Greg's a bit of a wily fox.
Yes, well, those two have been, tit for tat for some time now. So it'd be a good wrestle, actually.
It would be a good wrestle. Do you think? Okay, so Lance came back from cancer and won a bunch of tours. Greg got shot and won a bunch of tours. Do you think we're not maiming our cyclists enough? Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we need to be shooting and electrocuting, I don't know, possibly inflicting hideous diseases on them more often. Would that harden them up more? Do you think that's what Richie Porte needs, is what I'm saying? Should we shoot Richie Porte? Just a little bit. Just a small, just like a little, maybe a 2-2 or something. I don't know.
Well, maybe that's, but it's funny how it evolves. Americans always it always has to be not only bigger and better, but more tragic or more impossible.
Yeah, maybe we should Tonya Harding Porter and just give him a crack on the shin with a bat before next season or something.
Being from Tasmania, I think it's some sort of Port Tasmanian devil thing, maybe in a sleeping bag, something. I don't know.
There you go.
I've actually got this amazing image I can remember from my childhood when Greg LeMond won the tour. And he won by 8 seconds from Laurent Fignon, the closest race.
Second best ponytail in professional
amazing,
cycling.
like Fignon, Phil claims the credit, but Fignon kicked off the hipster movement, there's no doubt. The bullhorns, the ponytail. Anyway, this image of LeMond, and he's finished and he's got his zip down, and you can see the freaking bullet holes.
Oh, right.
The scars from the bullet holes. And I would love to see in the cage match, like Lance shave his hair so you can see the scars in his head. Sorry, sweat patch. I'll put my arms down. versus Greg LeMond. Do you reckon you'd still be able to see Greg's bullet holes?
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's still got quite a bit of that in him.
Be hidden in a few rolls.
Yeah,
you'd be able to see them.
There's rolls, but I can't comment on rolls. You guys, you two can.
So, this brings us to my favourite segment on the show.
What about Lance?
Fuck Lance. Oh, no. Look, lad, you did tell us an interesting story on the Lost Forever show about the first time you met Lance Armstrong.
That's right. It was this... He just joined the team. I'd heard that we were getting this recently turned from triathlete, a young guy. He was just still a junior, so he wasn't going to be riding, on the pro circuit that year, but he was joining us for the training camp. I mean, he had signed. And so Motorola wanted to nurture this young ex-triathlete. And so we're in San Francisco, getting picked up to do a training camp at Santa Rosa, just north of the Bay Area. And this I'm sitting on the bus. I'd come from Australia for this training camp. It's in late January, and there's this young kid that's walking down the passageway of the bus. I'm sort of trying to catch up on some sleep. And I look up and there's this kid coming at me, real punk, sort of, short hair, slang Texan, dialect, and he's just saying, "Phil Anderson, I know all about you." And he started rattling off stats like
Adam does.
Like Adam does, exactly. Yeah. And he said, I was just so excited. And he was right in my... He came right down, and he's like, this is an empty, 45-seater bus. It wasn't like a small team bus. This is a full commercial bloody operation. And, the aisle's only like this, and I'm sitting at the end of the aisle, and he basically came and sat on my lap, or right there. And he's just yelling and screaming, and I got this bloody... Felt like a hangover. It was just bloody lack of coffee or whatever it was after this, like my long flight. And he's going... Phil, I can't believe it. I've requested to be in your room, and started rattling on all the stuff he'd arranged, and he said, and I just heard that you've recently divorced, separated, or something like this. How old are you? And I was maybe 32 or something like that. And he goes, my mum, she's only 33, and she's coming to the rest. I want you to meet him. She's really cool. She's really cool. And I couldn't believe it. He was hitting on me for his mum. so sure enough, I met her at the rest day. She was pretty cool, but not my thing,
There you go. You heard it here first. Phil boned Lance's mum.
An exclusive. So, speaking of boning, no, don't. Please edit that out. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and Phil has a cup of tea strategically positioned because our executive producer has pointed out that he's pointing his crutch at the camera all the time.
He's presenting.
Suddenly everybody's rewinding.
Now, Billy Joe, what's happening this week in...
Wigo. This is where we discuss my man crush, the one and only Sir Bradley Wiggins. Yes, he is a knight. No, I don't believe he has a sword. Look, on June 7th of this year, Bradley Wiggins is going to attempt the world hour record.
That's like late next week.
Yes, I wasn't sure because I don't look at calendars. You have an hour record, Phil?
No.
No Bendigo Tour, no hour record. Okay, I'll just make a note of that. Yes. So the interesting thing about the hour record is you get a whole hour to do it. So there's no rush. But these guys seem in a terrible hurry. Bradley Wiggins has predicted something around the 54 to 55 kilometre mark.
Wow.
At your peak, Phil, not known as a time trialist, but you did pull out a couple of very spectacular time trials. Did you ever consider having a crack at the old hour record?
No.
Not for 1 second?
No. Not even in my retirement week.
No, I always thought you were probably quite a bit smarter than that. It's definitely not a thinking man's event, that one, is it?
Bury the head and off you go.
Yeah, which it was one that I always kind of thought I would have a go at one day, but it's not going to happen now.
So tell me again, Billy Joe, how many kilometres is he expecting to cover?
Sir Bradley is predicting somewhere in the 54 to 55 range. And again, I do very little research, so that could be wrong. But here's a little interesting statistic that I just found on Wikipedia, which is where I get all my information. So in the year 2000, the rules in the hour record were changed because people were, first of all, cheating and going too fast. So I think Chris Boardman and Tony Rominger both rode around the 55 kilometre mark.
Don't forget Graham O'Brien.
Graham O'Brien, personal friend of mine.
Made his own bike.
Visited me in my hotel room.
Can we
once.
get him on the show?
Not in that way. We probably could get him on the show.
Let's get him on the show and get him to make a bike out of a washing machine.
I have a Graham O'Brien story in just a minute. But so they changed the rules in the year 2000 to where the hour record had to be done on bikes the same as Eddie Merckx's. And the best ever done on those bikes, which are steel-framed, spoked wheels, normal handlebars, drop bars.
Like Phil used to ride.
Like Phil used to ride, absolutely. Was Chris Boardman in the year 2000, who rode 49.441 kilometres. So the reason the Boardman time of the year 2000 of 49.441 kilometres is significant is that the record that he broke was the previous one of 49.431. So he beat it by, look, I'm not good at maths, but that sounds like 10 metres.
That's not very far.
That's not very far. And that was ridden by a young man, most of you have probably never heard of him, called Eddie Merckx. Now, he's the father of Axel Merckx, just in case you don't know who he is. Axel, a very accomplished cyclist himself. And that was ridden in 1972, which was the year I was born. So there's a little statistic to chew on. 1972, Eddie Merckx, 49.431 kilometres. And I'm guessing that was probably on bamboo rims or something, right, Phil?
It possibly was bamboo rims.
Yeah. Now, you would have known Eddie fairly well, I'm guessing, but you didn't really overlap with him. He would have been retired before your time.
Yes. Yeah, I heard this crazy Australian was coming over and...
Got the hell out of there.
He had rumours of being a very falling off all the time and crashing riders. So, yeah, he decided
Punching
to
the
get
Frenchies
out
in the
before it came
face.
along. Yeah.
It's a very low
So,
bar.
you're a huge fan of Wigo.
I'm a huge fan of
Wigo brings colour to the darkest situation.
Wigo almost makes me watch cycling.
What will he bring to the hour that no one's brought to the hour before?
Look, I'm guessing probably
A camper van?
a camper van, highly likely. Groupies, definitely. Almost certainly there will be groupies.
Hipsters?
A beard. He'll be the first man to do the hour record with a beard, I'm hoping.
Will the band be there?
Oh, look, Oasis are bound to
Style
reunite for the
Council?
whole thing.
What
Style
was the-
Council.
what was-
Possibly Radiohead.
What was the band that he goes to the tailor with?
Oh, with Peter Weller from the
Peter
Jam.
Weller from the Jam. Yeah.
Apparently, Peter Weller from the Jam gave him the gave him the nod to accept his knighthood.
So the Jam will be playing at the hour record.
I assume they will be. Yeah, I'm gonna announce right now that the Jam will be playing at the hour
Will
record.
there be a Lance Greg LeMond cage
A death match?
cage
Yes,
match
cage
to,
match.
to
That'll
kick
happen.
things off?
That'll happen for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Phil, how far do you predict Wigo will go in the hour record?
Look, I heard rumours is aiming for 57. Blown out of the water.
Yeah, no, nothing would surprise me from that young man. Look, he's clearly the most talented cyclist that's ever lived. I mean, apart from, present company accepted.
So, anything else on Wigo this week?
Look, I think that's enough, really. The fact that I predict he will come out and smash the hour record and promptly retire.
So, Phil, I'd be interested to ask you something. I don't know if this will make the cut or not at some point. I reckon Phil Anderson on an Eddie Merckx have you still got your Merckx bikes?
Still got a couple of Merckxes, yeah.
What
Do you still
year?
own a track bike?
I've got like an 84 steel,
Wow.
and I've got like a 94 steel.
Can we get photos and put them on the Facebook page?
Yeah.
I reckon more people will look at that than watch this show.
Oh, guaranteed.
Can
No,
you,
absolutely.
apart from our huge European and South American audience,
Yeah.
would you have a crack at the 50-plus-year-old hour record on your Merckx with toe clips?
See, at the 50 plus, you get given an hour and a half to do it. So it's a
handicap.
It's way better. Yeah.
It's the 90
That'd
minute
be the
hour.
Australian way.
Yeah. No, you get a head start.
No, not in my wildest nightmare would I do that.
I don't think the Melbourne Warrnambool would have been far enough for Eddie Merckx.
Did you do a warning, Phil?
No.
Neither did I. You know what? There you go.
One thing in common.
Why don't we get together and do a warning one year? We'll just try to get a limit bunch and just roll across the line. Nah, fuck that. Let's not do that.
So, Phil, you're not doing the hour record. You're not doing Melbourne Warrnambool, but you do have some events coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up?
Doing the Melbourne Roubaix.
What's that?
That is it's not a race, it's just an event, a bit of a novelty event. I believe there is a challenge to try and navigate your way through areas of Melbourne which have a lot of cobbled streets and laneways. And it's a big occasion. I think we have, there'll be a couple of thousand people lining up. So I've never done one before, and it just looks like a bit of fun. So I haven't sort of organised a bike yet, but possibly an old beater, which I've got. Normally it's raining, so it could be a bit of fun on those cobbleways around the back laneways of Melbourne.
And that's actually a nice segue into mentioning who our sponsor is for this evening's show, and that would be Fixomatosis.
Fixo bag up there.
Fixo bag hanging up there.
Fixo make great bags.
They do. Andy
Great
White,
bags.
our friend, a good friend of the show, runs their website at fixo.co. He's the man single-handedly responsible for the Melbourne hipster fixed gear revolution and possibly the crash in the Giro.
And what a good dude. He's got this. They've got this thing with Melbourne Roubaix. Melbourne Roubaix, 2,500 people going in it this year. If you miss out on your entry you don't... if you miss out on entering and you don't live in Melbourne, all you got to do is ring him up and say, I don't live in Melbourne and I missed out.
Tough shit. Oh, no. Well, he might look after
And
you.
put on
Yes.
some sort of accent.
Yeah.
Probably not English, because I've heard Andy White hates the English.
Well, explain that that you might know Tom Bonin or something, and then he'll let you in straight away. And so, Phil, we'll see you at the Melbourne Roubaix in a few weeks' time. And Adam Kelsall, Where can we find you?
Well, as we've already established, I can be found at the back of any cycling race, probably behind the back. Or if you want to read anything I've written, check out Hero Dirt blog. And I've also got a Twitter, Hero Dirt. Check it out.
So, Adam, I want to hear about these remounting skills, mate. Where did they come from at these cross events?
Did you see what just happened, Billy Joe?
I did.
I got asked a question by Phil Anderson about cycling.
I know. I'm frothing too. Don't worry.
So on the weekend I did my first cyclocross race. I wrote about it on Hero Dirt blog. Remounting on and off camber, shit skills. I had to roll all the way down the hill.
Basically,
and then
you ran your bike down the
yes,
hill.
I ran down the hill.
You could have
to get
let
on
it go
my
and it
bike,
could have waited for you at the
then
bottom.
By the time I got back on my bike, guess what was in front of me? A sandpit. Did I have any momentum to ride through the sandpit? No. I suck at cyclocross. I finished 13th in C grade.
There you go. 13th in C grade from a former triathlete gimp.
So, Billy Joe, where can people see you, mate, or hear about you?
Oh, yes. Well, that's a great question. Well, if you're careful, you can catch me on a Monday or Wednesday evening teaching jiu-jitsu in my garage. Otherwise, possibly loitering at a beach or park nearby, not in a sexual way. And, I don't know, maybe Facebook. Oh, hang on. I also do a podcast called My Shout, the Men's Health Podcast.
It's a terrific podcast. And you're famous in lawn?
Am I? What did I do there?
Didn't you drive your concrete truck up someone's yard or something?
Oh, no, they just give me dirty looks whenever I drive my truck down there. That's why I swear a lot, people. I'm sorry. If Norm has to edit this, it's because I swear like a truck driver because I actually physically am a truck driver.
And just before we go, Billy Joe, what the hell happened to last week's podcast?
Once again, if you leave a truck driver in charge of the audio, stuff like that's going to happen.
If we can ever dig up last week's podcast, we'll find out what really happened between Phil Anderson and Lance Armstrong's mum.
Thank you very much for watching this show. From myself, there has been Billy Joe Shearsby, the know-it-all.
Until tonight, Adam Kelsall.
And cycling legend.
Phil Anderson, thanks for having me.
And we'll have you back again next week when we delete this audio accidentally.
Thank you, Phil. It's been a pleasure.
Sorry, guys. I can't help myself. When I see a lens, that's what I have to do.